I've been demoted at work. Harry came home with a serious look on his face. What? I almost spilled the tea I was drinking. I knew his company's performance had been poor lately, and I was aware that there were major personnel changes because of restructuring. But I never thought it would affect Harry directly. Even so, I believe it's important to be there for him in tough times like these, as his wife. Well, I guess we've just had some bad luck. Times are tough, but I'm working too, so don't worry, I said with a cheerful tone, trying to lighten the mood. My name is Grace, and I'm 51 years old. I currently work full-time in a back office. I live with my husband, Harry, who is 2 years older than me, our daughter Ruby, who is in her second year of high school, and my 73-year-old mother-in-law, Evie. Evie and I don't always get along, but since I'm out of the house for work most of the time, we don't see each other often, so I try not to let it bother me too much. I told Ruby, "Your dad is feeling down because of the demotion, but try to act normal around him." However, Harry started venting his frustrations at home. It's often said that people take out their frustrations on those they're closest to, and that's exactly what happened. All of his anger was directed at me. The next day, during my day off, I was cleaning the hallway when Harry walked by and suddenly said, "You've gained weight since we got married, haven't you?" I was taken aback. Well, I am 51 after all. Even the gynecology pamphlets say that women tend to gain weight around menopause, I replied. But according to my company's health checkup, I'm not overweight. Harry didn't seem to care about my explanation. Forget the health checkup. Your figure is unsightly. You're just being lazy. If you're overweight, I'm embarrassed to be seen with you and your barrel-like figure. I was at a loss for words. How could my husband say something so hurtful? Before I could respond, he muttered ugly and locked himself in his room. I stood there in shock. What had just happened? I pinched my side. Yes, I could pinch a bed of fat, but why was he suddenly so cruel? The shock was so great that I forgot I was holding the mop in my hand. It slipped from my grasp and clattered loudly onto the floor. From that day on, Harry's attitude toward me grew colder and more hostile. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law seemed to have overheard our argument that weekend and joined in, doubling the pressure on me. One day, as I was climbing the stairs with a laundry basket ready to hang the clothes, Evie came down from the second floor. I could tell by the look on her face that she was about to add to my already heavy burden. She didn't come down the stairs. Instead, she just stood at the top, waiting. Then, she'd make comments like, "Oh, how terrible. If only you weren't so fat, we could pass each other on the stairs. But because of your size, only one person can fit, so I have to wait." When I served fried chicken for dinner, she'd say, "Isn't this what's making you fat?" And then take my plate away, suggesting that only the three of them, who weren't overweight, should eat. My gynecologist had told me that after middle age, you either gain weight or lose it, but my mother-in-law was on the thin side. She was as skinny as a dried-up tree. Even though her petty harassment annoyed me, I had learned to put up with it. Her jabs were nothing new, so I was somewhat used to them. What really hurt, though, was how my husband, Harry, had been treating me since the incident. He stopped talking to me altogether. There were no more thank yous or "that was delicious," even when I served him breakfast. He would just eat silently and then get up without a word. He would come and go from the bathroom without saying anything. We still shared the same bedroom, but he would just turn his back to me and play with his smartphone. It felt unbearable to be treated as if I were invisible. One night, I gathered all my courage and asked, "Did I do something to deserve being ignored?" He replied, "Not really, but I just don't want to talk to anyone other than humans." He continued, "I don't want to be seen as a family with someone this fat. If you care about me, lose some weight." I was crushed by his words. But gaining weight is common after middle age, and you know that, right? I'm trying my best. I walk 1.5 miles every day to work. I really was trying hard to fight the weight gain that comes with aging, but he turned his back to me and said coldly, "If you're not seeing results, then it's like you're not trying at all. Don't talk to me anymore." From that point on, he truly stopped talking to me. My mother-in-law kept making fun of my weight. Whenever there was meat, fruit, or rice on the table, she'd ask, "Are you allowed to eat that? Do you even realize what you're doing?" Because of this, I ended up only eating salads and boiled vegetables. Harry just watched all of this without saying a word, silently moving his chopsticks. I started to think that my marriage might really be over. In my spare time, I began packing my belongings. If Harry was going to treat me like I didn't exist, maybe it would be better to just disappear. When I told my daughter, "I'm thinking about going back to my parents' house," she said, "Yeah, I get it. I've seen Grandma and Dad always picking on you during meals. It's hard to watch. I'll go with you, Mom. We can live at Grandma and Grandpa's, and I can still go to high school from there." Now, tomorrow is the day when Harry's demotion, which I've known about for a while, will officially happen right after the winter break. Tonight, Harry came over with a smile and said, "Let's have a drink, everyone, just this once." Starting tomorrow, he'll begin a life without subordinates. I wondered if Harry found this situation unbearable, but by now, I had lost the will to play along with his charade. Even his forced smile was starting to irritate me. During dinner, Harry said, "Let's have a nightcap. I'll make wine spritzers." This might have been the first time he'd spoken to me since the day after he told me about his demotion. He added, "Ruby can have juice, and I'll make a wine spritzer for you too, Grace." Then he placed the prepared drinks at 3 spots on the table. It felt strange. Why was he being so suddenly nice? When Harry turned his back for a moment to look for the TV remote, I sniffed the drink he had made for me. The smell was faint, but unmistakable. I recognized it because I've used that ingredient in cooking before. I couldn't believe it. How could he even think of making me drink this? I couldn't stand it anymore, my mother-in-law's constant harassment, being ignored by my husband, and now this. I decided I was going to pay them back. The wine spritzer was the last straw. Trying to keep my voice calm, I said, "Harry, could you get the camembert cheese from the fridge? It's from a local dairy farm and really delicious. I'm glad we're having this family time. Could you fetch it?" Harry, thinking he should at least do that much, headed towards the fridge. While he was away, and before my mother-in-law and daughter sat down, I quietly switched my drink with the one on the seat to my right, the seat that belonged to Evie, my mother-in-law. Harry returned with the cheese. "Well, now that we've got the snacks ready, I'll call Ruby and Mom," I said loudly enough for them to hear. "Dinner's ready." The two of them made their way to the dining room and took their seats. It seemed like just a regular dinner. We had meatloaf, cornbread, salad, stewed chicken soup, cheese, and of course, the wine spritzer. Ruby was having juice. "Let's eat," Ruby said, breaking the silence. Harry and my mother-in-law stayed quiet. I took a sip of the wine spritzer Harry had made, noticing that he was watching me closely. I smiled and said, "Yeah, it's good." "Huh?" Harry murmured something under his breath, but I ignored him. I dug into the salad and then took another sip of the wine spritzer. Suddenly, a stream of red liquid shot out of my mother-in-law's mouth, reminding me of Godzilla's fire breath. "Wait, Grandma, what happened?" Ruby jumped up in surprise as some of the liquid splashed onto her salad. "Did you choke? Are you okay?" Ruby quickly grabbed a towel and returned to help her grandmother, who was frantically wiping her mouth. "What? What is that?" Ruby asked in shock. "Grandma, your mouth. It looks like spicy cod roe," she added, noticing the bright red color. My mother-in-law began to panic. "Hey, you, he put it in my drink," she shrieked, lunging at me. I coldly brushed her hand away and said, "It wasn't me." Harry made the drink. When my mother-in-law realized this, it was the first time she'd been brushed off, and hearing that Harry was responsible must have been a huge shock. "What?" she screamed, her lips still covered in the sauce, and then turned to look at Harry. He was shaking. I leaned toward Harry, placing my hand on the table to exert some pressure. "You thought you could hide it in the wine spritzer, didn't you?" I could smell it a little because I've used it before. That was Drop of Hell, wasn't it? Drop of Hell. I had bought it at a food fair in Alabama. It's not as famous as Death Sauce, but it has a hint of lime, which I liked for its homey taste. That hint of lime was what I smelled, which means Harry mixed a considerable amount into the drink. My mother-in-law must not have noticed because of the wine spritzer smell or thought the lime was just part of the flavor. That's probably why she drank it, but regardless, this was a seriously malicious prank, extremely vicious. "Wait, Dad did that? Why?" Ruby, our daughter, wore a shocked expression. I actually intended for Grace to drink it," Harry confessed. My mother-in-law, realizing the drink was meant for me, tried to push it onto me. No way was I switching to that dangerous drink. "No way am I drinking that," I said in a low voice, maintaining my pressure on Harry. Then I cornered him. "Explain why on earth you thought of doing something so outrageous." He hesitated but then replied, "You were staying chubby and spicy food boosts metabolism, so I thought I'd make it." Wow, that's pathetic. What a lame excuse. I laughed sarcastically. Did he really think that explanation would be acceptable? It was utterly embarrassing. Under pressure, Harry hesitated and slightly moved his chair back. "I'm not crazy. This is a legitimate reason to support your diet. Here, exchange this with your cup and drink it. I made it for you," Harry said, trying to sound convincing. I closed the distance between us as my husband retreated. "What are you saying? As the one who made it, you should taste it to see if it's delicious." "Come on." I stood up, took the cup containing the Drop of Hell from in front of my mother-in-law, and threw it in front of Harry. Then I leaned in closer to him. "After ignoring me and treating me like I didn't exist for so long, did you really think I'd drink something you made with a smile out of nowhere? Didn't that cross your empty mind? Isn't it too childish? Come on, taste it. As the one who made it, you should take responsibility." I slammed the table. The sound echoed in the room, and Harry, thinking he could escape, stood up from his chair and backed away. After a tense silence, a quiet voice spoke. "Drink it." Harry and I turned to the source of the voice. It was Ruby. She started to speak as if she were squeezing out the words, "Taking your frustration out on Mom, who supports you the most when things don't go well at work, and repeating cruel treatment. This is like a childish prank." "I might not be supposed to say this to my parents," Ruby began, her voice firm yet filled with emotion, "but this is too childish and unbearable to watch." Our daughter stood up, facing her father with a determined look. "Is it wrong to be overweight? Mom wakes up early and walks to work, and she even brings her own lunch. It's not like she's not trying." Then she turned to her grandmother, continuing, "And you're going along with it, taking away Mom's dinner, like fried chicken? What you're doing, Grandma, is like something out of middle school. It's embarrassing." At those words, Evie, clearly flustered, started making a confused excuse. "That's not it," Evie stammered. "I'm just worried that Ruby's mom might gain even more weight." She seemed desperate to justify her actions, as if she wanted to be seen in a good light by her granddaughter. In fact, Evie did like Ruby, but this time, Ruby was harsh. Compassion is something that is felt by the other person. It hurt to see Mom's dinner taken away, especially when she looked so sad. I wouldn't call that compassion. Evie fell silent, unable to respond. Ruby wasn't done, though. She turned back to her father, saying, Mom goes to the gynecologist every month and keeps herself active, but despite all that, Dad just ignores her because she's put on some weight. What's his deal? She continued, her words growing more intense. The atmosphere he creates by ignoring her makes the house feel so tense. Can't he see that? Even Colonel Sanders and Aunt Stella from the cookie ads are plump. There's a term called happy weight, you know. Ruby paused, then added, if Mom gets older and becomes a lovely grandmother like Aunt Stella, I'd be thrilled. When I have kids and she's become a grandma, wouldn't it be great to say, Mom, you've gained some happy weight, and laugh about it? That's my dream. Could you please not ruin it for me? Her gaze was cold as ice, but her words warmed my heart like hot milk paired with cookies. It was a pathetic sight, a father being scorned by his own daughter. But Ruby wasn't finished yet. She directed her next words at her father. If you're going to ignore someone because of weight gain due to aging, you should realize that with your thinning hair, you could easily be overlooked yourself. The tension at the dinner table was palpable. Ruby's biting words brought a chill to the living room, making it feel so cold that even a banana might freeze. After a sigh, Ruby turned to me, her tone softer but still serious. That's enough, Mom. It's time to let it go. It will be better for you. Her words took me by surprise. Let it go. That's right. You should let it go, Ruby continued. As I said earlier, my dream is to see you holding my child, saying, you've gained some happy weight, and laughing. For my sake, I want you to be happy, because that's part of my dream. So please, let it go. Be happy and fulfill my dream. Her words filled my heart with warmth. Everything she said made me so happy that, in that moment, I didn't care about being ignored by my husband. Tears of relief and warmth streamed down my cheeks as I finally let go of the burdens that had weighed me down for so long. Yeah, you're right, I whispered to Ruby, my vision blurred by tears. She patted my back and gave me a gentle push, urging me to take the next step. Oh, okay. I nodded and went to the kitchen, returning with a document I had kept hidden for some time. What? My husband's voice cracked with surprise. After a month of being ignored, I had made up my mind. I handed him the divorce papers, with only my name signed. I just wanted you to lose some weight, Harry stammered, panic rising in his voice. If you had slimmed down, I would have been content. I didn't realize it was venting until Ruby pointed it out, but since you didn't lose any weight, I thought I'd torment you more. I didn't mean for this to happen. Ruby cut in sharply. It's on those who don't notice until things get serious, and what they're upset about is incredibly childish. Living without her beloved granddaughter must have been unbearable for Evie. In a desperate attempt, she interjected, Hey, Ruby, you want to keep living with us, don't you? Your grandmother loves you. Her voice was as soft as stroking a cat. I decline, Ruby responded coldly. I don't want to breathe the same air as people who act like middle schoolers anymore. Evie's plea was shut down, leaving the room in a tense silence. Harry, now fully cornered, tried to redeem himself. Okay, I got it. I'll take responsibility as the one who made it. He picked up the glass filled with the concoction of wine and drop of hell and gulped it down in one go. Just like Evie, he spewed a stream of the red liquid from his mouth, his lips turning a striking shade of lobster red. See, I took responsibility, right, Ruby? He mumbled, his voice strained. Ruby, unamused, took out her phone and snapped a picture of both of them with their ridiculous lobster lips. Both of you are so lame. Mom, let's go. She exited the living room, and I followed her without looking back. What remained behind was a dinner table splattered with wine spritzer mixed with a drop of hell, and two pitiful figures, Harry and Evie, with their embarrassing lobster lips. Ruby and I moved back to my parents' house. When we explained the situation, Both my mother and father were furious. They confronted Harry and Evie, retrieved the divorce papers, and ensured the divorce was finalized. My ex-husband, Harry, hit rock bottom in his career, spending his remaining years without any significant achievements. His habit of ignoring things he didn't like, even at work, had led to his demotion, which I only recently heard about. As for my ex-mother-in-law, Evie, who had always been difficult and rarely ventured outside, she's now stuck in a lifeless two-person household. Eventually, I received a call from Evie. If you and Ruby were here, it wouldn't be so stale. This is proven by the 18 years we lived together since Ruby was born. Please come back. I'll stop ignoring you. But there was no way I would return. My mother, with her ever-present sense of humor, joked, "Better gain weight while you can. Once you have grandchildren, you'll have more physical work to do." We both laughed. Today, as usual, I was walking to work when my boss drove by and stopped the car. "Want a lift?" he offered. "No, thanks. I'm on a diet," I replied with a smile. "Just get in, Grace," he insisted. Yes, I found a new boyfriend. We both had been divorced once, and because of that, we understand each other well. As he drove, he added, "Dieting is good and all, but it would be a problem if you're late." "I've never been late before," I responded, puffing up my cheeks playfully. He glanced my way, gently poking my cheek with his finger. "Give me the time you saved by riding in the car today for our conversation," he said, ever the talkative boyfriend.